Hi there, my name is Laura De Leon. I'm the campus librarian at Stratford University in Woodbridge. We are going to talk today about the differences between the APA 6th and the APA 7th edition. So let me go ahead and share my screen. Give me just a second, please. And bring up the PowerPoint that we're going to use. So when we talk about the changes between the 6th edition and the 7th edition, we're talking about changes in student papers only. APA has separated out student papers versus professional papers. So we're only going to be looking at the changes for student papers. Now, of course, this is effective in 2020 Term 5, so that's coming up very soon. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the changes in general formatting, the headers, and the title page. So in APA 6th edition, general formatting had 4 basic rules that called for Times New Roman, 12-point, double spacing, and 1-inch margins. However, in the 7th edition, APA is now allowing for 6 or 7 more fonts, as well as 11 or 12 point type, depending on which font is used. But in talking with our university deans, we felt that it was better just to give Stratford students just one option for their font and font size, and that would be a continuation of using Times New Roman and 12-point. We know that a lot of students already have templates set up and felt this was much easier for them. And then, of course, double spacing and 1-inch margins has not changed. So next, let's talk about the title page and the headers. Now, the biggest change has to do with the header. In APA 6th edition, the header contained the words running head, the title of the paper in caps, and the page number on the title page, and then the subsequent pages had the title of the paper and the page number in the header. Well, 7th edition has actually made this a little easier for students. Students no longer have to use the words running head as well as the title in the header. So now the only thing that's going to appear in the header of an APA style paper, beginning on the title page, is the page number only. The other changes to the title page is that now when you type your title as a student, that title is now bolded. And of course, you're going to put your name, you're going to put Stratford University, but you are also now going to put the course number and course name, the instructor name and the instructor's title, and the assignment due date. So those last 3 fields there are the additions to the title page that you'll be using. So this is what an APA style title page will look like. And if you notice in the header, only the page number is there beginning on the title page with page 1. Your title is now bolded, and then you'll list all the other fields that we just talked about. Next, let's talk about the abstract, the body of the paper with level headings. Some classes at Stratford University does require the use of an abstract. And if that's the case, the only change between the 6th edition and the 7th edition is now you will be bolding the word abstract at the top of the page. One thing to note, also on your reference page, the word references is now bolded. The 6th edition did not call for bolding those 2 words, but in the 7th edition, you will be bolding them. And I think that's probably to bring it in line with the various section headers in the body of the paper, and then it's consistent throughout the entire paper. So the level headers, the only change is with the level 3 header. Level 1 header, the level 2 section header, those have not changed, as you can see. However, the level 3 header in APA 6th edition was indented a ½ inch, and then students began writing right after the level 3 header. Now in the 7th edition, there's been several changes. The first thing is that the level header itself is left justified instead of indenting. You can also see that it's italicized, and the first letter of each important word will be capitalized. The other big change is now students begin writing underneath the header instead of next to it. So this is an example of an abstract page and the body of the paper. And in the abstract page, the abstract is now bolded. And in the level header area, you can see what they're all going to look like. This would be the first level header, this would be the second, and this would be the third. And of course, underneath or with a third header, students begin typing underneath the actual header itself. So next, let's talk about grammar and punctuation. In terms of grammar, the only change that's been made is that in the 7th edition, words like they or them or their or themselves can now be used as a singular pronoun. So in this example, I don't know who wrote this paper, but they followed APA 7th edition. Versus in the 6th edition, you would have said he or she. So this allows you to use these forms of they. Punctuation. In the 6th edition, they called for using 2 spaces at the end of a sentence and between your sentences. In the 7th edition, APA says for students to use a single space between sentences. Now, you may want to ask your instructor, if you're always used to doing 2 spaces, ask your instructor if they have a preference for this, because some may not mind you using the 2 spaces since that's how you may have learned how to do it. But I would ask your instructor. Next, let's talk about in-text citations. There's been one change that I think will make it easier for students to do in-text citations that have more than 2 authors. So in the 6th edition, in the in-text citation, of course, it's made up of the author field and the year of publication, and it goes into the body of the paper. There was a rule for 2 authors, there was a rule for 3 to 5 authors, and then a rule for more than 5 authors. So the rule for 3 to 5 authors in the 6th edition indicated that the first time your source material had 3, 4, or 5 authors, the first time you would do an in-text citation, you would list all of the authors as well as the date of publication. And then for subsequent uses, you could list the first author et al. And the year of publication. So the 7th edition has made this a little bit easier. And of course, the rules for 1 author, for 2 authors are still the same. But if your source material has 3 or more authors, now you only have to use in the in-text citation the first author et al. And the year of publication. So in this case, the author field of the reference has 3 authors here, and the year of publication being 2012. You just have to list the first author et al. And the year of publication. Now, there is a caveat to that, and that's if you have 3 or more authors, and the first author and date of publication is the same. So, for example, if you notice in these 2 references, the first author for both of these references is Applington, and the year of publication for both of them is 2012. Well, that would present a problem. If a student just used Applington 2010 as the in-text citation, the instructor would not know which reference the student is referring to. So what APA 7th edition says to do is to list as many names as necessary to differentiate the sources. Follow that by et al. And then the year of publication. So down at the bottom here is the list of in-text citation examples. And in this case, when you look at your references, notice that it's the third reference that, or I'm sorry, the third author's name that differentiates the two references. So the in-text citation, Appleton, Berry, McClintock et al. 2010, you can tell now that that would correspond and lead the reader to this reference versus Appleton, Berry, Steiner et al. 2010. That would correspond with the second reference and lead the reader to this reference. So next, let's talk about references themselves. There have been a couple of different changes in the author field, as well as a couple of different format changes. So let's talk about the author field first. In the 6th edition, students had to list up to 7 authors in the author field of the reference. If there were more than 7 authors, students listed the first 6 authors, followed by ... and then they provided the last author's name. So in this example here, where there's approximately 24 authors, in the 6th edition, students would list the first 6 authors, ... and the last author. The 7th edition, however, calls for more authors to be listed in that author field. So if the source material has up to 19 authors, a student would have to list all 19 authors. If there were 10 authors, the students would list 10 authors. If there were more than 20 authors, that's when the student can list up to 19 authors, ... and the last author. So I can foresee that reference pages will get a little bit longer because you've got so many more authors in the author field of a reference. Next is the book format. There's only been one change here, and that has to do with the place of publication. In the 6th edition of APA, students listed the place of publication before the publisher. However, what's changed in the 7th edition is that students no longer have to list the place of publication. The actual publisher will automatically follow the title information. Now, that doesn't matter if it's a hard copy or an ebook, it's the same principle. Next, let's talk about differences in web pages and what a student will see in web page, differences in web pages. So the first one, if you notice in the APA 6th edition, in the title field, when a student would type the name of the web page they were looking at, they would not italicize it. However, in the 7th edition, the title of the web page is now italicized. Next is the retrieve from statement. In the 6th edition, students always preceded the web address or URL with the retrieve from statement. However, oops, I'm sorry, I went one ahead. However, in the APA 7th edition, if you notice in this first example, there is no retrieve from statement. The reference flows from the title of the web page directly to the web page address. The only time a student would use a retrieve from statement is if they were including the date that they retrieved the actual information. And the only reason a date should be used is if the student believed that the information from this URL was going to either be moved or removed from the actual website. So that really would be the only reason a student would use a retrieve from statement with a date. So next are the reference, in terms of references, are the URLs themselves. If you notice in the 6th edition, the URLs were not hyperlinked. However, now in the 7th edition, APA calls for all of the URLs or web addresses to be hyperlinked. And this will make it much easier for whomever is reading the paper to easily click on the link and go directly to the source material. And the last thing in the references has to do with the DOI label for journal articles. As you can see in the 6th edition, retrieve from DOI and then the actual DOI address. However, in the 7th edition, along with dropping the retrieve from statement, that DOI label is now dropped. So you can see right after the page numbers, if you have a DOI, the only thing you're going to put is a link to the DOI itself. It's very easy for the reader to tell that this is a DOI because the letters DOI appear in the URL. So, what kind of resources do you all have available to you? Well, certainly those of us who are campus librarians can help you. If online students need any help, they can contact the library@stratford.edu link or email, and we are more than happy to help with any APA style questions. The other thing that's available is a LibGuide for specifically the APA 7th edition. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get out of the PowerPoint and go into Moodle to show you the information that's on that LibGuide. Now, there are a couple of ways to get to the LibGuide for the APA 7th edition, one of which is you may have a link in your Moodle class for it, so look for that. If you don't have a link, notice that the library has a 24/7 set of links that are available 24/7 on the Moodle main menu. And if you hover over it, you can get access to our databases, you can get access to our other LibGuides, but this APA resource link will take you directly to the APA 7th edition LibGuide. So if I click it, this is the LibGuide here. And notice there are all kinds of tabs that will hopefully answer all questions, so that if a student is working, say at 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Saturday and the instructor isn't available or a campus librarian isn't available, this LibGuide is always available to give you examples and help answer questions. So let's take a look at some of the features. On the home page, there is in the left side here, what's new in APA 7th edition. And if you click the link, it's going to bring you to a PDF that's going to discuss what was done in APA 6th edition versus what we're now doing in the 7th edition. So it's a reiteration of the PowerPoint that we went through, just in a different format. So that can be printed out on a couple of different pages and easily looked at. The other thing that you have access to is this quick study guide. So this quick study guide is meant to be just that, just to give the basic information, something that students can print out. It's only 2 pages long. And if they forget, okay, what am I supposed to do with general formatting? You can see that it gives the basic information about general formatting, about the headers, what should be on the title page, the abstract, the body of the paper. And then on the second page, it has information about references on the left-hand side and what the various fields of a reference are, that author field that we just talked about, and then just a couple of examples on how to put things together. And on the right-hand side of this quick guide, there's also in-text citation information, what the various fields are in an in-text citation, where students can put the in-text citation, examples, and then a few other things here. So again, this is just a quick guide that you can find here. Students can print them out. Again, only 2 pages, something they can keep next to them to help them. This APA 7th edition and plagiarism checklist is another document made available to students, and it's just a reminder. Did I do this? Did I do that? I have a reference on my reference page. Do I have a corresponding in-text citation? Or vice versa. I have a corresponding in-text citation. Do I have, oh, I'm sorry, I have an in-text citation. Do I have a corresponding reference? So again, something that students can print out to be able to use, you know, as a guide with them as they're sitting and doing their APA paper. This here is a short Prezi that students and instructors can click on. It only takes a minute or two to click through it. And again, it talks about why we use APA at Stratford. It gives the formatting rules and some other things to help guide students through the use of APA. Then on the right-hand side, every page will have a link as to how to contact the campus librarians, and most pages will have a link to the Purdue OWL. So if student or instructors want to read more about it, there's a contextual link to that information in the Purdue OWL. So that's the home page. This plagiarism tab discusses about plagiarism, what's intentional versus unintentional, what's common knowledge, some tricks on how to avoid plagiarism, as well as a short video on plagiarism. Next is keeping track of sources, which some students may not find it as easy to do, but we give you here, you can use Microsoft Word's Reference Manager to help keep track of your sources. And if you've never used it before, there are 4 LinkedIn Learning videos that will help students and or instructors learn how to use it. There's also a free download called Zotero that is a download of a citation generator as well as a citation manager that students can use, and I've heard of it. It's very, very good and pretty easy to use. Now, the other thing that students could use is something called Perla. Now, this is a subscription-based download. I believe it's probably about $50 a year, but it is highly recommended by our faculty, especially our nursing faculty. And I do know that a lot of nursing students do use this, and they can generate citations and manage sources. Now, one tip for all of our students is that if you're using our Stratford databases, our research databases, every one of our journal databases, ebook databases, they all have a citation tool. And if you click that citation tool, you can get the APA citation or reference for whatever you're looking at. The nice part about that is if you use any information in your paper from the source, you have your reference already made for you. So keep that in mind when you're doing your research. Next is paraphrasing. Sometimes students find it difficult to paraphrase, so we give them some paraphrasing tips, and there's a short video to watch. And then general formatting. That's exactly what this is. This is general formatting for an APA style paper. Some of the things that we talked about in the PowerPoint. Next is the use of in-text citations and references. And this is just, there's a graphic here to help students understand, you know, that in-text citations leads the reader to the references as well as then the reader to the actual source material. As well as helps students not plagiarize. So there's a little bit more of information about that on this page. And then, of course, we have our reference and citation, in-text citation pages. If you click on references, it's going to give you various information about references themselves. And then you have these drop-down pages that show various examples, as well as have examples on how to format that author field. For in-text citations, again, that's got more information about in-text citations and how they're used. And then the drop-down boxes talk about quotations versus paraphrasing, formatting that author field, citing indirect sources, and then more. Then these last two tabs in the example APA style paper, we do provide students with a template that's done in Microsoft Word that can be downloaded and used as a template. A student would just have to put their own information in. The sample APA style paper here is a link to a paper in the Purdue OWL that goes more into depth about the various sections of an APA style paper. And then finally, these how-to videos. So there's 3 videos here, especially for students who might be a little more visual in their learning. This first video talks about how students can use or can set up their title page and their headings, insert their page numbers. The second video talks about the abstract and the body of the paper and how to set those up. And then this final video is a video on how to set up the reference page. And in that case, it shows how to set the reference page up using hanging indents. So again, that is our 7th edition style guide at Stratford University. It's very easy to get to. If the link isn't in your Moodle class, you can always click on Library and APA Resources, and it will take you here. Don't forget, you have the library email address so that if you have any questions, please feel free to email the librarians and we can assist you with whatever you need. Thanks for watching.